Hold on a second. Nope, wrong way. There we go. Got a little bit of work done with the, well, Male. A little tired. So the tail light on the passenger side's almost done to get bolted in the way I did the driver's side of it, and then started to get some stuff figured out for the rear shocks and gas tank. And with the Crosley here, I honestly I've lost track with the last video or whether or not I've covered it. The bumper is flipped, dropped, and tucked in now, so it can kind of show off more of the front end styling of the car, which is going to really be cool once I, well, get the thing actually mobile. But I'm just trying to think of things that may have happened since the last video. I've got the rack hooked up, so that wheel turns with that wheel. I've got the shaft that goes up to the column kind of in the universal down there. I got kind of finished getting the engine mounts like welded together, so I can figure out if I need to notch or bend my exhaust around it because of where it's at. And then I know I have to bring my column over like that far because it's like swept that way a little bit. But that was just literally me playing around with some scrap stuff to bolt it in. And once that gets squared away, I can actually figure out where my brake pedals will, well, drill 4 holes and bolt that in and get the brake booster and all that. And that will cover a fair amount of the front end stuff, other than I need to finish like tacking stuff to make like a firewall and finish tying the strut tops to the actual like firewall structure there. It's just been one of those things where I'm making sure it's structurally okay, but not making like the welds look pretty. And I think I might just call this car Stitch at this point, because everything is just like getting, well, scabbed together from just like parts of the Male, a Capri, a Festiva, Miata, another Capri, and just stuff like that. But it's going really well because this car is sitting on its own suspension right now, and the engine mount is truly holding the weight of the car. That just is my fire extinguisher to an extent. I don't have like compressed water, but I'm using that to keep it from getting too hot and messing up the mounts I'm going to show you. Well, that battery's going dead. Anyhow, these are, oops, just seeing my arm there. These are transmission mounts for a Crosley. And I bought 2 of them, so I drilled out the hole and made it to where they slide in, and then I've got an easier bracket than the Crosley engine mounts to work with while I, well, kind of create this whole engine mount setup, which this side kind of turned out kind of cool. I modified the bracket of a OEM or Miata mount and slid it forward a whole bunch and bolted it on, and then made my little cradle that's basically like a little piece of bar just to tie one side to the other to help keep like flexing of the engine mounts, and it just makes it a lot stronger and cooler in the end. And it just started like taking flat plates of steel and tagging it to the Miata mount and got it to where it was really solid, but I still needed to figure out the angle of the engine to make sure it was centered and, well, like level and whatnot and stuff like that. And finally got to it today, and I'm sorry I'm rambling, I'm just tired. So this side, just more random steel and scrap that's been laying around. I figured out laying that scrap of steel up on the actual engine hoist is working really well to just cut stuff out and not have to fight it too much. It's really nice, I gotta admit. So tomorrow I'm going to try and make gussets that triangulate this side like I did the driver's side. And then once that's done, I've cleaned up most of what needs to be stitched together to clean up and make more structure on this side of the wheel well, to where I don't have to fight to get room to weld that later on when I bolt the alternator back in and hook it up. And then just a few transmission and just a few other little vacuum lines that go around here, I think are related to the fuel system. Nothing too complicated. I've got pictures for reference, and it just kind of common sense stuff I've got going on right there. But I'm just excited. This car is truly like, the engine is in. This was a huge hurdle to actually get this car together. Once like the engine mounts are done, alternator goes in, radiator goes in, I can start hooking up the wiring. I can figure out my intake, which I've had the hood shut completely with the radiator in and the intake going across to where it basically was like this, and then just came down over here to this pocket, which is where the grill is still open. So it's kind of a like clean air access still, instead of just getting heat soaked from the actual exhaust. However, if I still kind of have an issue, I can make a little aluminum barrier thing, and it'll just be cool stuff. Sorry, I'm just we're trying to keep breath, and I gotta get cleaned up. I have to go to work in the morning. So yeah, there's some other little things I'm gonna try and cover. I'm still not sure what wheels I will go with on the car. I'm considering using some Honda 14s I've got and modify them to where they take the old Crosley center caps, or I might just leave these speed up things on and make it to where it just burn off what's left of them because they leak air. Well, not the two I have on it, but the other two do, and they're not great either. So I'll get to that. And soon after I get like the little structure stuff I was talking about earlier done, I'll have considerably most of the weight of the front end on the car, and hopefully have a bit more of the firewall structure made up. I will then start working on making clearance for the wheels to have up travel and turning, to then start making my wheel well flares, which we'll see a really cool little thing going on with the Capri fenders I've got as donors to make like a fender well edge, and then I'll just make a little swelled like bridge over to it. And over here we're going to yeah, there, we're going to eventually get to where I'm using that, well, the Miata firewall or transmission tunnel anyways, throw it in there, clean up where there's been cuts and trimming to kind of move stuff around and figure out where things need to go, and get that stitched and welded in to what will be the firewall at that point. And with how things are falling really well so far, I should be able to use the OEM, hold on a sec, sorry, the OEM Crosley little like heater core thing. It's really cool, and from like pressure tested, it should like actually function still. So I should be able to throw the roughly 12 pounds of like actual like pressure that from the radiator cap that the cooling system will have, and be able to mount it somewhere. From what I'm seeing for firewall distance, it'll fall around this like height, like distance from the dash, if we can show that. Sorry, my phone's not one to zoom too much. So we'll get to that. The Miata seat is actually a bit low with the headroom these cars have. The guy who designed these literally was over 6 foot tall, and he was like, if I'm going to build a little car, I want to be able to sit and drive the thing. So there's considerably amount of like space in these things. So I've got the Capri seats from that white one I like parted out because it was dangerously rusty, and I'm gonna throw them in here, and it's gonna be kind of cool because they actually have a pattern that is close enough to match what's left of these door cards that I'm just gonna leave them in unless I find out they're made of asbestos, which there's a considerable chance they're made of asbestos or lead, so they might have to go. I'm gonna touch it again though, just to freak you out. So there's that. I still gotta get that gross rear seat out, and yeah, I'm getting excited because once the front end engine mounts get done, a lot of easier, quicker, and smaller things get done to make it where the front end of this whole car is ready to go, and just move to the middle of just getting the transmission brace like actually bolted on, to then run all the way back and make the transmission tunnel and all that good stuff, and then some really easy wiring loom to run back, and fuel lines and brake lines, and that's really it. And then I've still got the old like seals and stuff to replace this stuff. Once that happens, then it's as simple as cutting and narrowing the Miata rear subframe, and then welding it in, cutting my wheel well radius, throwing the gas tank and rear battery in, and then kind of see if I goofed up. So I'm gonna go home or go get cleaned up now. Hope you guys had fun, and I'll get like a outro shot for you. Behold the garbage.